for $1 million. That's how much I thought my family would respect. But what I didn't realize is that money doesn't buy loyalty. Sometimes it destroys it. That's where my story begins. I'm a 46-year-old woman. I've worked hard my entire life, and 10 years ago, after years of sacrifice, smart investments, and countless sleepless nights, it all finally paid off. My bank account became something my younger self would never have believed possible. Enough to live comfortably, to secure my children's future, and to maybe, just maybe, help out the people I loved. But let me warn you right now, generosity is a dangerous thing. At first, it felt amazing. My husband and I had always dreamed about what we'd do if we ever made it. Pay off the mortgage, buy a decent car, maybe even own a little vacation home. Well, I did all of that. We cleared the mortgage. We bought a car that wouldn't break down every 6 months. We purchased a cozy house in our favorite holiday spot, renting it out most of the year to a sweet family who loved it just as much as we did. And most importantly, we set up college funds for all 3 of our children. I thought I was being smart, thought I was building not just security, but fairness. If my kids had a future, why not ensure the same for my nieces and nephews too? So I set up college funds for every one of them. 5 on my husband's side, 2 on my brother's side. Equal amounts, equal opportunities. I even reimbursed my eldest niece's parents for the tuition they'd already paid just to make it fair. At first, they were grateful. My siblings, my in-laws, everyone. I wasn't just the aunt with money. I was the aunt who gave them hope. But here's the thing about hope. Once people get a taste of it, it turns into expectation. And when they start expecting, they start demanding. That's when my sister-in-law came in. You know the type. The kind who smiles sweetly in your face, but shreds you to pieces the second you leave the room. The kind who always needs to be the center of attention. Who believes her kids deserve more. Who throws shade so subtly you look like the villain for calling her out. I'd mastered the art of dealing with her. My tactic? Play dumb. Nitpick her passive-aggressive comments with innocent questions until she'd tie herself in knots. It worked until it didn't. For years, she dropped little hints. Wouldn't it be nice if we all went on a fancy holiday? Oh, you could totally cover it, right? I brushed them off. But after the pandemic, she came back stronger than ever at her son's birthday party. She dropped the bomb. She showed us this glossy resort package she found online. An all-inclusive water park, spa, kids entertainment. The works. For her family of 7, the price tag, $35,000. My husband laughed it off, saying, "Wow, good thing you've been saving." But my sister-in-law, she looked him dead in the eye and said, "Oh, we haven't saved a dime. We thought you'd be paying. You know, as my birthday gift." That's when the room went silent. Her own children looked up from their cake, wide-eyed, waiting for us to respond. My father-in-law stared, his jaw tightening. My husband chuckled nervously, thinking it was a joke, but it wasn't. She leaned forward, widening her eyes in that fake, innocent way she always does, and repeated, "You have the money. You won't even miss it." That's when something inside me snapped. Yes, I had money. Yes, I had already paid off her mortgage. Yes, I had funded her children's college tuition. But did she think I was her personal ATM? Did she forget the nights I stayed up working, the years I sacrificed, the time she had openly mocked me and even told people my husband should divorce me? I looked her in the eye and said, "You're right. I do have the money, but I won't be paying for this." Her face twisted. She sputtered, protested, cried about how they deserved it. She turned to my husband, to her father, to anyone who'd listen. But one by one, people started to realize she wasn't asking, she was demanding. And that was just the beginning, because soon her entitlement infected the entire family. You see, when one person finds out you have money, it spreads like wildfire. My sister-in-law couldn't accept that I wouldn't fund her fantasy holiday, so she ran her mouth to everyone. Suddenly, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them knew I wasn't just comfortable. They knew I was rich. And that's when phone calls started. One aunt demanded college funds for her 6 grandchildren, $800,000 each. Another uncle insisted I buy them a vacation home in the location of their choosing. They weren't asking. They were, emphasis, ordering. I sat there, laundry in my lap, phone on speaker. My husband's jaw clenched as he listened. I recorded the call halfway through, just so I'd have proof of how insane their requests were. When they finally paused, I said the words that silenced them. Do you remember when we were struggling? When we asked for help during our health scare? Out of 9 of you, only 3 helped us, and we paid them back. The rest of you told us, it's your responsibility to save for your family. If you can't, then you don't deserve them. Well, those are your words. And now, I'm giving them back to you. Click. I hung up. That should have been the end. But greed doesn't stop with a no. It escalates. Within weeks, a crowd of my relatives, 15 to 20 of them, showed up in my front yard. Cars lined the street. Neighbors peeked through curtains. My heart pounded as I stepped out of my car, groceries in hand, and saw them waiting like vultures. I dialed a non-emergency police line before I even reached my door, told them things could get ugly, and I wasn't wrong. The second I stepped inside the circle of bodies, the shouting began, demands, threats, fingers jabbing into my chest, spittle flying. Pay up or you'll regret it. Then my 6'3" uncle raised his hand, and in full view of everyone, he slapped me across the face. The world went still. Even the police officers, who had just arrived, froze. My cheek burned. Tears stung my eyes. He leaned in, snarling, "You obey me. I am the elder of this family. You will do as I say." That was it. That was the moment I stopped being the generous aunt and became the woman who fought back. I swung. My fist connected with his cheekbone, and he collapsed to the ground. Gasps. Silence. Then chaos. The police surged forward, separating me from the mob. Some relatives scrambled to their cars. Others argued with officers. My uncle groaned on the pavement, clutching his broken cheekbone. And just like that, everything changed. That punch, that single moment, it was like a line had been drawn in blood. Before, they saw me as a bank. After, they saw me as an enemy. The cops were furious. Neighbors had already called in complaints about the noise, and now there was an assault case unfolding right in front of them. My uncle was rattled, his cheekbone cracked, but he still tried to act tough. He kept barking orders, claiming family honor, as if we were characters in some twisted soap opera. But the officers weren't buying it. They issued fines for breaking social distancing rules, warned the group about trespassing, and made it very clear. If they didn't disperse, people were going to jail that night. One aunt started crying. Another tried to guilt trip the cops, saying, "She owes us. We're family. Isn't family supposed to take care of each other?" The officer, a tall woman with sharp eyes, leaned down and said flatly, "She doesn't owe you anything. Leave before I cuff you." That's when the cracks in my family widened into full-on fractures. Some cousins slipped away quietly, humiliated. Others doubled down, muttering threats under their breath. My uncle, the one who slapped me, was escorted into an ambulance once the paramedics confirmed his injury was serious. I stood there with bruised fingers, adrenaline still pumping through me, my kids peeking through the window inside the house. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of them anymore. I was angry. But anger doesn't just vanish. It lingers. It festers. And when the dust settled, the fallout came like a tidal wave. Social media lit up within hours. A cousin posted vague status updates about betrayal, about family tearing apart, about me being selfish. My sister-in-law, oh, she didn't miss a beat. She blasted the story everywhere, conveniently leaving out the part where I'd already paid for her house, her kids' education, her entire stability. She painted me as the villain. The only problem? She underestimated her own children. Her son, the birthday boy, uploaded a video, a TikTok of all things. In the background, you could clearly hear her trashing me, mocking my work, calling me a spoiled brat with a god complex. The comments section exploded. Suddenly, her credibility vanished. Friends, neighbors, even extended relatives turned on her. And just like that, the flying monkeys disappeared. No more guilt-tripping calls. No more texts demanding money. Just silence. Well, almost silence. My mother-in-law, she's the kind of woman who wants everyone together, who hates conflict, who has always favored her daughter over everyone else. She called in tears, saying she understood me, but begged me not to cut ties. She said, family is all we have. But family, I realized, had been weaponized against me. I told her gently, family is supposed to protect, not exploit. I love you, but if you side with her, you'll lose us too. She didn't have an answer. Now, let me tell you about the shift that happened inside my nieces and nephews. The kids, innocent, sharp, more perceptive than the adults give them credit for, they saw it all. They knew their parents' entitlement was toxic. They started rebelling quietly, stopping short of open defiance, but creating distance, doing chores in silence, ignoring small talk, staying locked in their rooms. My husband's sister, the entitled one, hated it. She'd scream, ground them, try to guilt them back into obedience. But the damage was done. Her children weren't blind. They'd seen who I was versus who she pretended to be. Some of them even came to our house, knocked on the door, teary-eyed, afraid we'd hate them for what their mom had done. We welcomed them in, cooked dinner, explained calmly, we don't blame you. We'll never punish you for their actions. But we also won't let them use us anymore. The relief in their eyes? That was worth more than any dollar in my account. But even then, I knew it wasn't over. Because once entitlement infects one branch of a family tree, it spreads to the roots. Weeks passed. Then came the next wave. An aunt, an uncle, they called out of the blue, voices dripping with fake concern. How are you holding up? Must be so hard with all the drama. And then came the pivot, the real reason for the call. We heard you set up college funds for some of the cousins. Is that true? Yes. We heard you bought a vacation home. Is that true? Yes. Well, then you have to do the same for our grandchildren. 6 of them. $800,000 each. And a vacation house in this location. We've already picked it out. We'll send the details. Oh! And don't forget the family trip. We deserve it too. I swear, for a moment, I thought it was a prank. But they were serious. Dead serious. So I asked the question, do you remember when we were drowning in medical bills? When we begged for help? How many of you stepped in? Silence. 3. 3 out of 9. And we paid every cent back. The rest of you told us, if you can't take care of your family, you don't deserve them. Well, now I'm telling you the same. And I hung up. That should have been the end. But entitlement, it doesn't end. It escalates. Soon more calls, more cousins, more sob stories about being left out, more guilt trips about keeping things equal. Even those who had once defended me started asking for just small favors. A loan here, a down payment there. One cousin was different. She came with paperwork. She'd already saved nearly everything for our house, just needed $1,000 to close the deal. She didn't ask for a gift. She asked for a certified loan, signed, notarized, binding. That I agreed to, because that was fair. That was responsible. But the second word got out, the mob erupted again. Why her and not us? Why them and not me? Because entitlement doesn't care about fairness. It only cares about what it thinks it's owed. And then came the day that broke everything. The ambush. I'll never forget the sight. I pulled into my street, groceries in the backseat, only to see cars lining both sides of the road. Not neighbors, not friends, family, 15, maybe 20 of them. Aunts, uncles, cousins, or spouses. Standing in my yard like an angry mob, waiting. My stomach dropped. I called the police again, told them I feared violence. And as I approached, bags in hand, they surrounded me. The shouting started instantly. Demands, threats, fingers jabbing. Someone spat near my shoes. Another waved a finger in my face, yelling, "We'll make you pay." I tried to push through, telling them to leave. But then, that uncle, the same one who had slapped me before, He raised his hand again, and this time he struck harder. My head snapped to the side, my cheek blazing red. And then I snapped. I didn't hesitate, didn't think. My fist shot forward, connecting squarely with his cheekbone. The crack echoed. He went down like a sack of bricks. The mob gasped. The police, who had just arrived, surged forward. Chaos exploded. Aunts screamed, cousins cursed. Some tried to run. Neighbors came out with phones, recording everything. By the end of the night, several of my relatives were fined. Some faced charges. My uncle was left with a broken cheekbone. And my security cameras? They went straight to the district attorney. That night, sitting in my living room with ice on my face and my husband's arm around me, I realized something chilling. Money hadn't brought us closer. It had destroyed us. But it wasn't the money's fault. It was theirs. Because greed, entitlement, jealousy, those things were already there, buried deep. The money just gave them an excuse to show their true colors. And once you see someone's true colors, you can't unsee them. The night of the ambush didn't just end in bruises and broken bones. It ended in silence. And silence, my friends, can be louder than screams. When the police cars finally pulled away and the last of my relatives disappeared into the dark, our street felt like a battlefield. Grocery bags still sat abandoned in the trunk. Neighbors whispered from behind curtains. And inside, my kids were huddled on the couch, their wide eyes asking a question I wasn't sure how to answer. Why does family hate us? I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My cheek throbbed, my knuckles ached, but it wasn't the pain that kept me awake. It was a realization that blood ties don't guarantee love. That sometimes strangers treat you better than family ever will. My husband sat beside me, quiet but firm. He said, "This ends now. We can't let them take another ounce of peace from us." He was right. But how do you cut out an entire family tree? How do you explain to your children that their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, the people they spent birthdays and holidays with, were now toxic? I wanted to shield them, but I also wanted them to know the truth. So the next morning, I gathered them at the kitchen table. The smell of pancakes filled the air, an attempt at normalcy, but the mood was heavy. I looked them in the eye and said, "What happened yesterday, it wasn't your fault. And it wasn't mine either. It was greed. Some people see money and lose themselves. But we don't live that way. We don't use people. We don't demand what isn't ours. Do you understand?" They nodded, solemn, more mature than kids their age should ever have to be. My youngest asked, "Does that mean we won't see them anymore?" I couldn't lie. Maybe not. At least not for a while. Their shoulders slumped, and my heart cracked. Beat shift to darker tension. But while my children processed grief, the adults around us plotted revenge. My sister-in-law, the queen of entitlement, wasn't done. Oh no, she turned to social media full force. Posts, rants, even videos painting me as a greedy monster who hoarded wealth while families starved. She conveniently left out the tuition payments, the mortgages, the vacations, the down payments. In her version, I was Scrooge, locking money away just to spite them. And for a while, people believed her. Old acquaintances messaged me. "Is it true? Why won't you help your family?" Neighbors gave me strange looks at the grocery store. Even some parents at my kids' school whispered, as if I'd been exposed as some sort of villain. But then, karma struck. Her own son, the same one who recorded her insults before, posted another video. This time, he didn't just capture whispers. He captured a full rant. Her voice, venomous, saying things like, "She thinks she's better than us. If we keep pushing, she'll break. She has to." The video went viral. Suddenly, the tide turned. Messages of support flooded my inbox. Strangers commented things like, "Protect your peace," and "Family doesn't mean abuse." Even some of the so-called flying monkeys from before came crawling back, apologizing, saying they hadn't known the full truth. But forgiveness? That wasn't coming easy. You know what nobody talks about when you come into money? The guilt, not the guilt of spending. It wasn't that. It was the guilt of saying no, of watching people's faces twist in betrayal when you refused. of knowing you could fix their problems, but choosing not to because you knew it would never end. I struggled with that. At night, lying awake, I'd hear my mother-in-law's voice. Family is all we have. And a small part of me wondered, was I wrong? Was I letting money make me cold? So I did what I'd never done before. I went to therapy. The first session, I sat across from a woman named Dr. Hayes. She had kind eyes, the kind that made you feel safe, but sharp enough to see through any excuse. I poured everything out. The mortgages, the college funds, the vacations, the demands, the slap, the mob in my yard. And then I asked her, almost in a whisper, "Am I the villain here? Am I heartless for saying no?" She leaned forward, hands folded. "No, you're not heartless. You're human. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're survival. You gave more than most ever would. And the fact that they want more doesn't mean you owe it. It means they've mistaken generosity for obligation." Her words sank into me like medicine. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Maybe I wasn't cruel. Maybe I was finally learning to protect myself. But therapy didn't stop the chaos outside those walls. Weeks later, we received a letter. Not a heartfelt apology, not a plea for peace. A letter from a lawyer. My sister-in-law and her husband had actually consulted someone about whether they could sue me. Their claim? That since I had paid for other relatives' tuition vacations, I was obligated to do the same for them. Otherwise, it was discrimination. I laughed when I read it. Not out of humor, but out of disbelief. A lawyer. They'd actually gone that far. My husband wanted to tear it up, but I didn't. I forwarded it to my own attorney. And within a week, they received a brutal response. "Your claim is baseless. Our client owes you nothing. Pursue this further, and you'll face counterclaims for harassment and defamation." Silence followed. They never tried the legal route again. But here's the thing. Just because the noise stopped doesn't mean the damage healed. My relationship with my parents-in-law was fractured. My children lost half their cousins. Holidays became awkward voids, empty chairs reminding us of what had been torn apart. And me? I kept asking myself one haunting question. Was this all my fault? Before the money, before the fights, there was family. Or at least, I thought there was. You see, people like to imagine money changes everything overnight. They think you go from ramen noodles to champagne, from worrying about bills to carefree vacations. But what they don't talk about is how it changes the people around you. And the only way I truly understood that was by remembering what it was like before. There was a time when we were broke. I mean, really broke. My husband had just lost his job, and I was working long hours just to keep the lights on. We had medical bills piling up from a health scare. The kind that makes you hold your breath every time the mail comes because you know another envelope is waiting to crush you. We reached out to family back then. Called every aunt, uncle, cousin. Begged for help, not gifts, not handouts. Just loans. Anything to get us through until we could stand again. Out of 9 relatives, 3 helped. 3. The rest turned us away. One even laughed. If you can't afford your family, you don't deserve one. Those words carved themselves into my memory. At the time, I felt ashamed, like maybe they were right. Maybe I was a failure. But now those same people were on my doorstep, screaming that I owed them. Funny how fast the rules change when money's involved. After the ambush, the kids, the ones who used to adore their parents, who once thought family barbecues were the highlight of summer, started pulling away. My nieces and nephews saw the hypocrisy. They saw the TikTok videos, the screaming, the entitlement, and they started rebelling. Not loud, not in-your-face rebellion, silent rebellion, ignoring texts, skipping family dinners, staying late at school activities just to avoid going home. One of them, my eldest niece, confided in me during a late-night call. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Annie, I can't stand how they talk about you. They make it sound like you're evil, but I know what you've done for us. I know you paid for my tuition. I know you care. Why can't they?" I wanted to cry, not just because of her words, but because she sounded like an adult trapped in a teenager's body. I told her, "Sweetheart, you can't control how they act, but you can control how you do." and you've already chosen better. She sniffled, but it's tearing us apart. She wasn't wrong. Social media made it worse. Every vague post, every cryptic meme, every rant from my sister-in-law kept the wound raw. She had an audience now, and she loved it. Her online friends cheered her on, telling her to demand her rights, to take what's hers. She even went so far as to message my acquaintances directly, twisting the story to make herself the victim. Some believed her, some didn't. But either way, the whispers followed me like a shadow. At the grocery store, I'd hear it. At the school drop-off line, I'd feel it. Even at church, a place that should have been neutral, people avoided eye contact. I realized then, family drama doesn't stay private anymore. It leaks, it spreads, and it brands you. And I hated it. The guilt kept creeping back. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word. You won't even miss it. We deserve it. You're selfish. Sometimes I almost believed them. That's when therapy became my lifeline. Dr. Hayes pushed me to explore why I felt so responsible for everyone else's happiness. Why no felt like a betrayal. You've tied your worth to being useful, she said once. But being used is not the same as being valued. That hit me hard, because deep down, that's exactly what was happening. I wasn't valued. I was used, and I finally had to face it. The final straw came not from adults, but from children. One afternoon, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I found 3 of my sister-in-law's kids standing there. No parents, just them clutching backpacks, eyes red from crying. "Can we stay here for a while?" The middle one asked. My heart clenched. They weren't running away. They just wanted peace. A night without screaming. A night without guilt. We let them in, fed them dinner, watched movies, let them sleep on the couch. But the next morning, when their parents came pounding on my door, red-faced and furious, it turned into another war. "How dare you undermine us? You're poisoning our children against us." I stood firm. I didn't poison anyone. They came here on their own. Maybe ask yourself why. Her face twisted, but for once, she had no comeback. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about control. My money represented freedom, independence, the ability to say no. And for people who thrive on manipulation, that was the ultimate threat. They couldn't own me anymore, and they hated me for it. People think money changes you, but the truth is, it changes everyone else. After the night my nieces showed up at my door, I knew there was no going back. The family lines had been drawn, and no amount of apologies or demands would erase what had been said, what had been done, or what had been exposed. But even as I tried to move forward, the echoes lingered. My children were quieter now. They didn't talk as much about their cousins. My oldest, usually loud and sarcastic, would stay at her phone in silence, scrolling past pictures of family events we hadn't been invited to. My middle child asked once in a trembling voice, "Mom, are we bad for not sharing?" That broke me. I knelt beside her, held her little hands, and said, "Sweetheart, giving is wonderful, but when people demand instead of asking, when they hurt you for not giving more, that's not love, that's greed. And greed is never your responsibility." She nodded slowly, but I could tell she was still trying to believe me. The real storm hit one Sunday afternoon. We were hosting a quiet dinner, just us and a few close friends, when the doorbell rang. My husband checked the camera, and his face went pale. It was her, my sister-in-law, alone this time. No kids, no husband, just her, standing there with that fake sweet smile plastered across her face, as if the last 6 months hadn't happened. Against my better judgment, we let her in. She sat down at our table like she owned it, smoothed her skirt, and cleared her throat. "I think we've all said things we regret," she began. "But we're family, and family forgives." I raised an eyebrow. Forgiveness doesn't erase boundaries. She ignored me. "The kids miss you. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. So I have a proposal." I braced myself. "If you pay for just one vacation, a simple one, not even a $35,000 one, I'll drop everything. No more drama. No more posts. Peace. It wasn't a proposal. It was blackmail. My husband slammed his fork down. Are you insane? You think you can buy peace by holding a hostage? Her smile faltered. I'm trying to compromise. No, I said firmly. You're trying to negotiate your way into my wallet. And that ends now. You've mocked me. You've lied about me. You've turned family against me. And even after all of that, after the houses, the tuition, the vacations, you still think you're owed more. Let me make it crystal clear. You will never get another cent from me. Not now. Not ever. Her face turned red, then pale, then red again. She opened her mouth to argue, but my husband stood, pointing to the door. Get out, and don't come back. And for the first time in her life, she obeyed. The house was quiet after she left. Too quiet. My friends stared wide-eyed as if they'd just witnessed an exorcism. My kids looked relieved, but also sad. Because even when you cut out poison, it still hurts to lose what you thought was family. But me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. That peace didn't mean everything was fixed. There were still whispers. Still family members who believed her lies. Still cousins who wanted handouts. Still invitations we'd never get again. But there were also victories. My nieces, the ones brave enough to rebel, stayed close. They'd visit, text, laugh with my kids as if nothing had changed. They knew where they stood now. They knew who truly had their backs. My parents-in-law eventually stopped pressuring us. My mother-in-law still fussed about keeping family together, but even she couldn't deny what her daughter had done. My father-in-law pulled me aside once, his voice low and gruff. I know you were right. She's my daughter, but you're my family too. Don't let anyone tell you different. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from him, and I accepted it. So, here's what I've learned. Money doesn't corrupt people. It reveals them. It shines a spotlight on who they really are, stripping away the masks they wear. Some will show gratitude. Some will show jealousy. And some will show entitlement so deep it rots everything it touches. But the hardest truth? You can't fix them. No amount of money, no amount of sacrifice, no amount of forgiveness will ever change people who believe they're owed your life. So you have to choose. Your peace or their approval. And for me, I choose peace. Every single time. So what would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you keep helping family, no matter how entitled they became? Or would you draw the line like I did? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Tea for more dramatic Reddit stories, where we spill the tea on toxic families, shocking betrayals, and karma that hits harder than anyone expects. Thanks for watching, and we'll spill more tea in the next story.